All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for Steve, K5ATA, on that presentation. Hey, I'm Kyle, AA0Z, and we're going to do some Node-RED dashboard fundamentals. If this is your first time here, I am a YouTuber that puts POTA, SOTA, contesting, Node-RED stuff, basically anything that interests me on the web, and shows you what I'm doing. So, John, yes, this will be playback for later. You can watch it at any time. It'll be on my channel. So I got a lot of information to get started, or to give you. So let's get started. So this is Node-RED Dashboard Fundamentals. There's part 1 and part 2 on my channel. Part 1 was Intro to Node-RED. I told you, or I showed you how to, what Node-RED was about, and Part 2 was Raspberry Pi install. This is just going to be focused on the dashboard. So let's get started here. All right, what is Node-RED? We're going to take a quick tour down memory lane here. Node-RED is a flow-based development tool for visual programming developed for wiring hardware devices together. So hardware, rotors, antenna controllers, your radio, amplifiers, APIs, and online services as part of the Internet of Things. Hang on, let me get my my chat up here. If you missed part 1, go out to my YouTube channel and check it out. Part 2 was installing on the Raspberry Pi. So I've got what can Node-RED control, and give you some examples. And then over here is basically a flow that you can put together to monitor your Raspberry Pi. All right, again, go back to my YouTube channel. There is a video on how to install Node-RED on a Raspberry Pi. I really encourage you to install it on a Raspberry Pi so it runs 24/7. That's probably the way to go. It does run on Windows, it runs on Linux, it runs on a Macintosh. So you can put it on anything, but I really encourage you to put it on something that's going to be up all the time. What is a dashboard? All right, this is a dashboard. This is my dashboard for my remote system. Basically, a dashboard is a command and control website that controls your flows here. So it can display anything like a graph, a status, a value. You can see a bunch of like CPU temperatures. I've got some switches up there. Does a network status. I've got a layer module, or a weather module, something that tells me the KPI and the SFI. So it can basically take a lot of things and display them on the dashboard in a couple of tabs, 1 tab, 2 tabs. It's unlimited. After you get your Raspberry Pi or whatever you're going to install Node-RED on up and running, what you want to do is you want to go to the dashboard. So you want to head over, or you want to go over to the control surface or the programming page that you're going to actually program your flows in, and that is going to be at HTTP and then the IP address of your Node-RED install. That might be localhost if you're installing it on a Mac or Windows, and then you want to go to port 1880. That's going to pop up the programming interface. You're going to come down over here to the Hamburger Menu, which is in the upper right-hand corner. You're going to come down here to Manage Palette. You're going to click on Install. You're going to type in Dashboard, and you want to load. Come over here to Install. You want to load the dashboard, and that is a palette install that you want to do as the first thing after you install Node-RED on your computer. Okay? That's step number 1. Step number 2, where's the dashboard config? All right, I've installed this thing. Where do I go to configure it? Well, there's a few different places where you can go. In the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see a new icon, and that's your dashboard. It kind of looks like a bar graph. You can click on that. That will get you to that dashboard. Or if you don't see that bar graph up there, you can click the down arrow in the upper right-hand corner right below the deploy button, and you can come down here to dashboard, and that's going to give you the dashboard that you can get into your dashboard. All right, so we've learned how to get into the dashboard and how to, or not configure, but how to get into it from the control, the programming interface. How do you get to the actual dashboard to show you the stuff on the dashboard? Well, that is at HTTP, then the IP of your Node-RED install, :/1880/UI. So you got to have this UI on the in the URL in order to display the dashboard. And this is after you've configured the dashboard. You want to see the dashboard nodes that you've got. Well, this is how you do it. So you can get to it through that, or you can get through it from the dashboard. So you want to click on the dashboard icon up here in the status bar, and then if you click on, I don't even know what that thing's called, but you want to click on that icon, it will open a new tab, and that will display the dashboard. Just keep in mind that anybody with the IP of your Node-RED server can get into the dashboard. You can secure it, but if you're just going to run it on your local network, I would suggest don't go through the process of securing it, because it's kind of a pain in the butt. Let me see if I got any questions here in the chat. Video looks clear. All right, we're going to keep going. If you have any questions, if you can tag me, I will be able to see them and stop and be able to address them. All right. Basic dashboard nodes. So this is the programming interface for Node-RED. If you look over here, all of your dashboard nodes are in aqua or teal or whatever you want to call this over here. Doesn't whatever is coming up on YouTube here. You want to come over here, and these are your dashboard nodes. As you pull them over into the programming flow interface, you can configure them. So after you've loaded your Raspberry Pi or your Node-RED install, come down, and you can search for them up here by typing in dashboard, but they're all going to be grouped, called dashboard, and they're all going to be a different shade depending on what the developer programmed them with. All right, basic dashboard nodes. So if you double-click on a dashboard node after you have put it into the programming interface, you're going to come up with these properties on each node. So I've pulled a couple of screenshots for properties. This is a gauge node. So these properties are configured for this CPU temperature. And this configuration here is for an LED, and it displays my Pi temp status. So you've got some groups here that we'll get into. The size of the node here, what type it is. So different nodes might have different types, like a gauge might have a bar or a 360 gauge. So there's different types of dashboard nodes. You've got the label, you've got the value formats, and that's out of scope. We're not going to get into that, but there are different parameters that you can configure here to display the data that you want, that's coming into the node that you want to display on the dashboard. For example, here on the LED, this is probably a little bit easier. So the message payload, as it comes in, if it's a certain value, do you want it to display red? Do you want it to display yellow? Or do you want it to display green? So that's something else you can configure. And like I said, every dashboard has got different types of configurations that you just basically have to play around with. All right. How do you align your dashboard nodes? All right, so we've talked about the properties of the dashboard nodes, right? After you've put them on in a flow and you've deployed your flow, it's just going to put them wherever it thinks it needs to put them in. And that's not what you want to do. You want to put them in a logical order, and you want to group them with like categories, right? So, for example, here is a control interface, my dashboard, and I've got Raspberry Pi status and control. So that's the name of this group here. And if you can see down here, Raspberry Pi status and control is this first one. The second one is power switch miscellaneous. Power switch miscellaneous, flex power, web relay, flex power, web relay. So you can group them left to right, and then as you put them in the dashboard configuration screen on your sidebar here, you can put them in order top to bottom, and that's the way that they will look on the screen. And we'll get into that a little bit further. All right, dashboard tabs and groups. So basically, whenever you come down here and you start your dashboard out and you have nothing configured, it's going to be a blank slate, right? So nothing is going to be down here in your dashboard layout tab. So you got to make some tabs and some groups. So basically, you make a tab, and tabs are web pages. That's how I think of them. So they're web pages. They're full pages on your dashboard. You come down here to groups. So groups are nested underneath tabs, and groups are basically whole sections for your dashboard. So if I go back to this configuration, this Raspberry Pi status and control, this is all one group here. This power switch miscellaneous, this is all one group. And each one of these switches here is a dashboard node, okay? Same thing with flex power. This is a dashboard node. This is a dashboard node. If I expanded these groups here, you would see these individual nodes underneath that group. And you can see Elayer Command and Control, that's the name of the tab. Here is Elayer Command and Control up here as the tab name, and everything is underneath Elayer Command and Control. We'll get into some more stuff here. So again, tab, random number tab, random number tab, random numbers group, random numbers group. So this is how you group everything together on the dashboard in order for you to put everything together and make it nice and pretty. So we didn't talk about spacers, but we'll talk a little bit about spacers on how you align groups with nodes with each other. Node-RED doesn't do a great job with putting things together and screen sizing. So if you have big screens, it probably looks better. But if you have a small screen or you have a high resolution, a low resolution, it doesn't do the best with sizing everything per the resolution. That's the one downside about Node-RED that I don't like. Thanks, T.O. Thanks for the $2 super chat. Let's see, what else? What else on this page? I think that's about it for this guy. So again, talked about tabs, and we'll get into this Hamburger menu up here, but you can see the Elayer Control, Elayer Command and Control, that's the name of the tab. It's got these groups underneath of it. These groups have got nodes underneath it that are configured, and the nodes actually have a place where you can put the nodes. You just don't put the nodes anywhere and just let them fall where they be. You can configure where exactly the nodes go on your screen. So I'll show you that. But here, we've got more than one tab. We've got the Elayer Command and Control. We've got Radio B Shack Control. We've got the DX Cluster. We've got FR Stack. We've got Slices. And we got a camera feed. So by default, additional tabs are located under the... Okay, yeah. So if you click this hamburger menu, you're going to see all of these other tabs under the hamburger menu. So you click this hamburger menu, and here you've got Elayer Command and Control. That's the first tab. Second tab is Radio B, Shack Control, Radio B, Shack Control, DX Cluster, FR Stack, Slices is down here, and Camera Feed. So as you build more and more pages, you're probably going to group like things together and probably put tabs together. And then you don't have to build the menu. You don't have to build the HTML to make this drop down. It automatically gets created whenever you create a new tab. And you can display different icons here through the Font Awesome library. That is a free library that has different fonts, so you can make different fonts in here to make whatever icons you want for the different tabs. All right, dashboard nodes within groups. All right, so nodes are nested within dashboard groups. So this gauge, this random number gauge here, is nested underneath this group, the random numbers group, and the random number tab. Okay, so like I said, this is a dashboard node, and whenever you configure the node, you can drag and drop this into the correct group, or you can configure it from the properties interface. And I think that is one of the things that we're going to talk about. So again, to bring up the dashboard node's properties, you double click on it, and it's going to bring up the node properties for that dashboard node. And this is that Raspberry Pi configuration that I was showing you here. So it comes over here, it does some things, it converts some values, and then it brings itself into, or passes itself into, the CPU temperature. And if we take a look at this group, this is where you assign it to a specific group. This is the size, 3 by 3. It's a gauge. It's got a label of CPU temperature. The value, this is called mustache. Mustache configuration, not in this scope, but you can go and Google mustache configuration. It's got a unit of Fahrenheit. The minimum is 0. The maximum is 150. So 0 is green. If it's green to yellow, it's got a value of 0 to 110. Yellow's got 110 to 140. And then anything from 140 to 150, it has a red value. Are there pre-built tabs you can download? I don't think so, Don. I think you have to configure them yourself. Yeah, Jason, does someone say stash? It's funny. All right, editing a dashboard within a node. All right. This is where it gets a little hairy here. In the Properties tab, you click on, or if you click on the Modify button here, you're going to be able to create a random number tab. I'm sorry, a new tab, and I called it Random Numbers tab. And if it doesn't exist, you can create that, and then it's going to ask you what group you want to put this node under, and you can give it a group name. So I called it Random Numbers Group. And if that doesn't exist, you have the ability to create that all within this Add, Modify, and Delete button. So that's how you assign different things to, or different dashboards to, dashboard nodes to tabs and groups. You can also drag and drop them whenever you don't have to assign a dashboard node to a tab or a group. It will put it under a default, and then in the sidebar, you can drag and drop it into the correct tab and group if you want to. Because as you're going through and programming this, what's going to happen is you're going to start thinking about, oh, I want to put this under this tab, or this is going to go under this group, and those groups and those tabs are going to are going to flow, and they are going to basically logically create themselves in your mind as you're creating flows. And oh, this flow has got these gauges or these LEDs, and I want all of this stuff to be grouped together. And then you're going to just put a new tab. And that's going to be your main page, and then you're going to create a group, and all those things are going to go, all those dashboard nodes are going to go under a group. So everything is going to come logically to you once you start programming flows. That's interesting. So you can't share your work with others, so others can use and add something you have done. Oh, I see, Don. No, so you can export your flows. And whenever you export your flows, those dashboard tabs and groups come into your Node-RED flows automatically. Sorry, I didn't understand your question. I thought you meant, hey, is there something pre-built that I can download from scratch? And you can, but it's all that stuff comes together or comes with a flow if you download a flow and pre-install or install that as a flow. If that makes any sense. Josh asks, can you export your hustles and flows? Yes. Yes, you can export all of your flows. You can export a tab. You can export a flow. You can export your whole project and send it to somebody, and they can import it as is. And as long as they'll have to import the nodes that they potentially don't have installed, but that's easy. You can go into it, and it'll tell you what nodes you have to install. But yeah, if you download a flow off the internet, you can import that into your Node-RED configuration and be up and running within a couple of minutes. So Don asks, is there a website where those are shared? Well, if you go to for ham radio, if you go on Groups.io and type in Node-RED for ham radio, there's a whole group on Groups.io that you can join, and all of the flows, there's maybe 100 flows out there for all different types of stuff. And Don says, I know about the group. The random stuff, GitHub, there's some stuff on the Node-RED website. So I hope that answers your question, Don. All right, how do I create tabs and groups? All right, so I'm in the dashboard sidebar. I'm under layout, and I want to create a tab. So I click the plus tab button, and that's going to give me a dialog box, and that's going to create a new tab. Once I have this tab created, so I created tab 1 at this top level. If I want to create a new group, I click on the plus group button, and it gives me a dialog box, and I can create a new group. To get to these, I don't think that you have to hover over the tab and the link and these buttons to get to them. I think that they are there all the time. But if you want to show the group, the edit, and the layout, you have to hover over this line here, this tab, and these buttons will display, and then you can add your group underneath your tab. So maybe you want to do your first flow, you want to do a tab, and you want to do a group, and then you want to program a bunch of flows with some dashboard nodes and add them to this group, this dummy group, and start playing around with it. All right. So again, you want to hover over to add groups, and you can see here I've got the random numbers tab, I've got numbers group, and I've got a node called random number gauge, and I can edit the group. I can put a spacer, and we'll get into spacers here. I can edit the tab over here with the edit tab, and then also I can bring up the properties of the dashboard node by hovering over the dashboard line here, node line, and hitting the edit button, and that properties window will show up. All right, this is where you get into the nitty-gritty on how you make all of your dashboard and your nodes and your groups all pretty. So, under the tabs button, you want to go to layout, or you want to hover over in the upper right-hand corner here, and you want to click layout. This is going to bring up a whole new window, and it's going to show you all of your groups. And this is where you're going to size and configure all of your dashboard nodes on where they lie within the group, okay? So in this scenario, I've got a width of 6. So let me go back. This random numbers tab, I hit the layout button. This screen pops up, and it will show all of the groups underneath this random numbers tab. You can see that I only have one group called random numbers group that has got one dashboard node in it that I've configured, a gauge, a CPU gauge, let's say, and that gauge occupies this space. So we are editing the random numbers tab. This is the random numbers group. It's got a width of 6 units. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. And random number gauge fills this whole space. Probably because I have back on my properties tab of the dashboard, I gave it a size of auto. If you give it to a size of auto, it is going to basically fill the whole group in that space. What you can do is if you click on the auto button on the dashboard node, you can give it a size, let's say 3 by 3, and it will only occupy 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it will have this square down here, and you can basically force it to a specific size that you need it to be. I start mine all in auto and go from there. So that's how you configure the nodes within the group, okay? So if you want to make it a specific size, click the auto button. So we are in the edit gauge node properties. Going to hit the auto button, and then this drop-down menu is going to pop up, and then you can say, all right, I want it 5 by 4. And then you click, I don't know if there's an OK button, but anyway, you drag it to the size that you want, 5 by 4, and it's going to size it only 5 by 4, and it's going to lock it to that size, okay? So in this scenario, we locked it to 4 by 3. Sorry to jump around there, but we locked it to 4 by 3. So again, we are in the random numbers tab. We've got the random numbers group. We've got a width of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we told the gauge node to be 4 by 3. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 by 3. 1, 2, 3. So once you lock it, this lock button is going to populate. But then if you want to make it smaller or larger, you're going to get this arrow, this double arrow down here, and you're going to be able to drag and drop it, the size on how big you want it, right? So automatically, since you've got a width of 6, you've got blank space over here. Node Red automatically puts a bunch of spacers in, a 2x1 spacer, so a 2x1 spacer over here as part of your group. So if you size things accordingly or give it a specific size and you've got some space in there, don't be alarmed if it puts some spacers in there to help fill up the gaps on empty space, okay? All right, I showed you the dashboard that I use beforehand, and this is that screen where it's got all of the gauges, the groups. So I've got Raspberry Pi status and control, got power switch miscellaneous, flex power, web relay, network status, Elayer, weather, and then solar down here. All of these are at different widths. So this has got a width of 6. This has got a width of 3, 3, 3, 6, 6, and this has got a width of 4. You can see that I've got different dashboard nodes configured. Here I've got CPU temperature, memory used, disk space, CPU, CPU temperature, that's a chart, the reboot button, and the shutdown button for the Raspberry Pi status and control group. So here I've got, it's kind of blanked out here, but you've got the Elayer command and control. So this is Elayer command and control. And Raspberry Pi status and control, Raspberry Pi status and control. And here are all of those configurations for the dashboard, okay? So this is how it lines up. It's got, so I took a screenshot of this group and how things line up. So I've got CPU temperature. Here's the CPU temperature gauge. It is stuck to 3x3. It occupies 3x3. Memory used, 3x3 gauge. So I've got you can have hidden nodes. I didn't know that I had it, and I didn't want to unhide it for this example. So this is a hidden node that is in the dashboard that obviously is hidden. But then you've got disk space. Here's a gauge. That's this. CPU. That's a gauge. This is that. Here's the CPU temperature chart. So it occupies 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 because our width is 6. And it occupies 1, 2, 3, 4 units down. And you can see that I've got it locked to 6x4. And here's the CPU temperature. And then here's the reboot button, and here's the shutdown button. Same thing over here on the weather for the Elayer contesting station. You've got a text box, that's this, where it's telling me that there's clouds, the screenshot that I took this at. Another weather details, and I'm getting this off of, I think it's Weather Underground that I'm pulling this from. Wind direction, so this is a gauge, but it's a 360-degree gauge that you can choose. So here's another gauge. We've got the outside temp, and that's a text. Outside temp here is a chart. Another weather LED, and that's this node here, and then you've got this switch here, shut down if thunder, so that it basically shuts down the the remote station if there's lightning and thunder in the area. So this is basically the side-by-side comparison on how things look in your dashboard configuration screen compared to what they look like on the dashboard. All right, a little ahead of schedule here, which is good. Does anybody have any questions? I am maybe going to load up I've got some time here. I'm going to load up my node red, and I'm going to open a new project. So this is a new project here. So I'm gonna deploy, gonna inject a timestamp here, and let's see. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get a random number generator. I'm gonna wire this together, and I'm gonna say from 1 to 10. That's good, and it's a whole number. It's an integer. Looks good to me. So I'm gonna take this timestamp, and I'm going to say I'm going to inject this at an interval, and I'm going to do this every second. So if we take a debug node and wire it together, and I deploy this, and I go to the debug, you can see that it's deploying, or it's creating a random number every second. That's exactly what we want. Okay. So I'm going to come down here, and I am going to grab a gauge. There's my dashboard node. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to see how it says unassigned. I'm going to add a new. Well, first I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to say this is for a tab. So I'm going to say I want to add a new tab, and I'm going to call this new tab. I'm going to add a new tab. And this is the group name, so I'm going to call this new group. I'm going to add this new group. So I have just deployed this gauge on a new tab and a new group, size auto, type gauge, and I am going to say between the range of 0 and 10, and I'm going to say if it's between 0 and 5, it's green. From 5 to 8, it's yellow, and between 8 and 10, it is red. Going to hit the deploy button. Going to come over here and click on my dashboard. Here's my new tab. Here's my new group. And here's my gauge. So if I click on my dashboard, a little new tab, there it is. So it's giving me whole integers from 1 to 10, and every second it's telling me where it's at. That's how easy it is to deploy new dashboard nodes on a dashboard. Any questions? We could probably do a text also. Could wire that to the random number. So we're going to come up here, and we're going to assign this to the new tab and the new group assignment. We're going to give that an auto. And let's see. Text input. Oh, that's text input. Sorry, can't do that. We want a, let's see. We just want a text. That's why it looked a little weird. So we're going to choose the new tab and the new group. Message payload. Label. Looks good. We're going to keep it at auto. And then we're going to deploy this. And if we take a look at that, here's the text, and here are the values. If we want to edit this, we can come down here to Layout, and here's my new group. Here's my gauge and my text. So if I want to put, no, it's not grabbing it. So if I wanted to put the text above the gauge, I'd hit the deploy button, rearrange that. If I came over here to layout, now text is above gauge. And you can rearrange this within. So now I'm locking the nodes here. You don't have to. But if I deploy this and I go back to the dashboard, text is now above gauge. I'm not really sure why it was not like this before. So here I want to bring text below gauge. I'm going to deploy that. There. Now the gauge is on top and the text is below the gauge. So Don asked, want to talk about code inside a function node. Yes, you can put code inside of a function node. That is correct. You can deploy a function node here. Let's say we wire that up to this node. In the function node, here's where you can put some free text. I'm sorry, some free programming. And pass it whatever you want, and then whatever comes out of that programming, you can wire it to another node. Any questions? That is about it. I only had 45 minutes to show you all this. We're going to get back on the top of the hour. Hopefully this is helpful to those that are putting together some Node-RED dashboards. If you got any questions or comments, put them in the chat now. But if you have any comments, you can go ahead and put them in the comments. Like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel and you find some of this stuff interesting. Please subscribe. Give me a like. Again, I do contesting videos. You can see that I've got some Flex Radio stuff. Also, I play trivia every third Friday of the month at 8 p.m. Central. You want to do some ham radio trivia? Join me here on the channel at 8 p.m. every third Friday, and we'll get that done. We are actually going to play trivia. I believe it is June 4th. I had computer issues on my regular trivia and couldn't play. So we are going to play trivia on June 4th at 8 p.m. and it's going to be a Hamvention special. So brush up on your Hamvention trivia, and we'll play that June 4th at 8 p.m. That's it, boys and girls, cats and dogs. We next up is TO and FT8 off. I believe it's TO. I'm not really sure. Somebody will drop it in the chat. The playlist is up there on the chat. No, it's over there. Go to the top. The playlist is pinned, and click on the playlist, and it will automatically roll into the next video. So thanks, Arnie, for the like and the subscribe. Who else liked? Thanks, Marty, for the like and the sub. Yeah. Some more videos to come. Field Day, got Missouri QSO coming up, and some other videos that I got planned. So, yeah, TO on FT8. I think that I will. It is TO. Good job. A good deal. I think I'm going to join. I don't have my rig configured for FT8 because it's WPX weekend, but we will hang out and heckle the FT8ers. All right. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out. Hopefully you found this beneficial, and we'll say 73.